Very good morning. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Chris Giddings, Content and Learning Consultant here at Cornerstone, been with the business now for just over 7 years. So thanks for joining us. Wanted to kick things off with just a little bit of a kind of introduction here to the content ecosystem and solution that many of our attendees today will already be familiar with. So for those not quite so familiar, I just wanted to spend a couple of moments just to talk through what that looks like, and then we'll lead into the discussion here with Kyle. So just to help sort of set that scene, over the years, we've been building this ecosystem of content providers, leading third-party content providers from the global market that bring the best content, leading content by topic, modality, all the key skills and things that people need to be learning. And we've been building that ecosystem now for a number of years, and that will continue to evolve, including the acquisition of Tailspin, which was around 8 weeks ago. We also pair that content with in-house content originals or Cornerstone originals content that we build ourselves that's absolutely unique to our Cornerstone customers. Ultimately, then we are curating, we are taking the best content from these leading content providers and building those into our content subscriptions. So it brings all of the best content, makes it engaging, it's relevant, and people, continue to consume and drive that self-led learning. The centerpiece for us here is really interesting. This is something we've been building out over the last 6 to 12 months around Content Studio. So we know that typically there are challenges if you are managing a content catalog. How do I know what's in there? What is the best content I want to surface to my learners? How do I find a piece of content or create a piece of learning pathway based around a particular skill, topic, language, modality? That's why we've brought out Content Studio. It's a fully agnostic tool that sits across all of our learning architecture and really helps our customers to discover what is in their catalog and review that and manage it very simply and easily. Very easily then actually curate that content into meaningful collections and pathways. Great social collaboration in there as well, that your peers can be involved with that review process. They can make comments, they can help, they can change, so it drives that collaboration piece. And with the new Gen AI functionality launching in a couple of weeks' time, that will help build out those collections through our companion tool. Really exciting piece for us. That again will help to build out the title, the description, the recommended content that you're putting into those collections. So it's really exciting for us. And then there'll be a third piece of that launching a little later on this year around insights. And it will answer that age-old question of what are other customers doing? How are we performing? What's trending from our users? How are people engaging with the content? So through some pre-built dashboards, data points, you can very quickly and easily see how your people are engaging with content, what's popular, what's self-led, what skills are people building, and how does that benchmark against similar Cornerstone customers across, the 7,000 customers that we work with globally. And then the fourth piece to the Content Studio kind of ecosystem in the center there is around, we fully recognize that customers want to build content themselves and they want to customize, they want to personalize. And our creator tool will allow customers to do just that. You can personalize any of our Cornerstone Originals content. So that's several thousand titles. And you can then very simply and easily create your own in-house content there as well, all seamlessly published and managed again through this ecosystem in the center. And ultimately then how we surface that is seamlessly integrated. So all of the content solutions that we offer are seamlessly integrated across our learning architecture. So that's the learning management systems or the Cornerstone learning experience. And more recently, we can now offer that to maybe new customers who have a third-party existing LMS or LXP there as well. So we have multiple ways that the content can now be surfaced to our customers based on their needs as well. Okay, so if we go next slide. All right, brilliant. So we talked around how we effectively curate and we surface the content that we have from our ecosystem of content providers. Ultimately, we're building these out into content subscriptions. So we want to give our customers choice because not everybody needs every bit of content that we have available. So through that consultative approach that we have, we can really understand the business drivers and what our customers are trying to achieve. You can see in the top right-hand corner of the slide there are 4 core subscriptions. And then we have more specialist areas as well, things around DEIB, SMB, which is our smaller organizations, and immersive learning sits there also as a standalone catalog that we can offer. We'll come into a little later, but as Carl will explain later on, the new Tailspin content is immersed fully into the content subscriptions that we have there as well. So a lot of customers talking to us at the moment around how do they help kind of consolidate their landscape of content providers, make it more cost effective, but ultimately driving that engagement, driving the self-led learning, all of those key things that align to business goals, outcomes, and what they're trying to achieve. And if we go next slide. And ultimately, the biggest question I think I get asked is how do we help keep our customers engaged? How do you, as a L&D practitioner, L&D function, academy owner, whatever it might be, keep people engaged, not just in the short term because you've launched something, actually in that longer term? And that's where the Cornerstone content subscriptions have that breadth and depth of topics, a range of different providers. And across that range of providers, we have multimodality. So we know that everybody likes to learn in slightly different ways. People have their preferences. And what we've built out over the recent years is now 5 modalities. Immersive learning coming from Tailspin as per that acquisition around 8 weeks ago. So what we see through the utilization of those content subscriptions is much more in terms of longer term engagement, repeat consumption. People spend more time, but adopting a breadth of different providers, different modalities. That's where we see that repeat consumption. And ultimately, whether it's upskilling, reskilling, more kind of structured program of learning, it's having these all different sort of modalities and styles in one place. That's what drives the engagement. That's what helps to build learning culture. Okay, I'll jump to the next slide. So at this point, that's me done with the positioning of Cornerstone for those that aren't quite so familiar with our content offering. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Kyle Jackson from the Tailspin business that I know Kyle has been extremely busy since he joined the Cornerstone family just 8 weeks ago. So Kyle, I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Great fun to be here, and it's great to see kind of that Immersive is now on there as a one of the default modalities. And so I guess give a little background. Like Chris said, my name is Kyle Jackson. I was the CEO and founder of Tailspin. We started about 8 years ago and waded through kind of the early innings of this new modality up till 8 weeks ago, where we were acquired, by Cornerstone. And the timing of that, I think, couldn't be more perfect. This has been over the last 8 years, went from kind of introducing the concept of immersive and walking into rooms and putting headsets on executives that weren't really didn't know fully what they were getting into, to now, I think what I would say, even just in the last few weeks, going through the first Connect Live event in Chicago, there's real conviction about the power of it. And now there's a lot of questions. It's like, how do we get to scale? How do we just make this simple and easy? And luckily, that's what we've been focusing on for a long time. So now we've brought it to Cornerstone. We're making it even easier to pick up and adopt. And we've got a ton of really valuable learnings over 8 years. So it's a super rich space. And even though it is 8 years in, it's still early innings. And so it's a lot to wrap your head around, and it's a lot of fun to dive into it. And so I just love every one of these times to get with people and answer questions, because not everybody's had the benefit of living in this for the last 8 years, day and night to try to understand it. So super excited to be here. Yeah.
Thanks, Carl. And I think we've absolutely seen this with the interest that we've had from our customers since the acquisition was announced. We've had events, we've got Connect coming up, we've had learning technologies where we had huge amounts of interest, loads of questions. What does this mean for us? How could we adopt it as a business? So to expand on that, I guess most people on this webinar are probably going to be really interested to hear a little bit more about what will this mean for them as Cornerstone customers? What will this mean for our customers at this point?
Yeah, so Yvonne, if you want to go to the next slide. So I'm going to jump around a bunch because we've got a lot of content in the deck just to kind of help illustrate different points. But most simply, right, we wanted to empower organizations to create, consume, distribute, and measure immersive learning at scale. And so you go one more. We're going to double click into that. There's a couple different components that we wanted to bring to bear. So, Chris, as you were mentioning, we built a no-code tool that allows content creation to be made much more quickly and also by a much wider range of potential creators. And so that tool has now been used to create a library. And so we now have this library of content across a wide range of topics that's been introduced into CCA and is also being offered as a standalone offering. So that's that first tile. And then the next one is the actual authoring platform itself. One of the frictions that we saw early on, going back probably about 4 or 5 years ago now, was this content to build these like fully immersive or mixed reality worlds has historically taken very technical skills in 3D art, in game development, and programming, and we needed to take that from that kind of level of authorship and talent down to something that just anybody can create. We wanted it to put it to as close to the business problem as we possibly could, put it in the learning and development practitioners' hands, or even just somebody in the business lines' hands to be able to create. And so that's what the Copilot Designer is. It's that authoring environment, which is designed for easy creation. And then there's 2 other components to what we're bringing. So we're going to continue to kind of help hold people's hands on this journey as necessary. So we still will help create content if people need that. But really, it's, like I said, it's early innings. So we've got a lot of innovation in front of us. And so there's a lot of questions. And really, it's about becoming a partner in that. First, start by making it really, really easy to adopt and get started. But as you start to unfold the journey of what immersive can offering, or what it can offer, that we're there with services to help. And then the last one's, as everybody probably knows, skills is wedded through everything we're trying to do. And that was true at Tailspin as well. The thing that's really interesting about this modality is because you're so engaged in it, because you're actively participating in it instead of watching it just like a video. You have this rich data pool for skill measurement. And so we always like to say it's a proof of skill instead of an indication of skill. If I watch a video, it's kind of an indication that I might be on the way to understanding that skill. Where here, because I'm so engaged in the content, it's really a proof of skill. And so, and there's a little video we can talk to now that kind of put some visuals to it, because not everybody knows what this stuff looks like. Here we go. Okay, so I'll narrate, because it's better to explain this to than to just listen to the music play. But we're at a point now, as you guys can see, with the headsets themselves are really getting down in profile. They're standalone devices, and in most of these cases here, we're showing virtual reality, where people are entering fully immersive worlds, and in this case, engaging with virtual AI-based characters. As you engage in this type of learning, you're really entering these virtual worlds. You're stepping into them as if it was, your actual physical reality. And so that's a big part of what manages to create the exponential outcomes in the higher level of engagement. But as we're doing this, we're bringing, business worlds into the virtual worlds. And so you saw there a couple of clips of, actual business environments from some of our customers.
Stuff. Thanks, Carl. And I think that's really useful. It helps set the scene more around what that Tailspin offering will bring to the table. Myself included, I think this has been a real learning curve as to what immersive learning is, what it does. My learning curve has been pretty much vertical, I think, around this topic. So could you maybe just give us a little high-level overview for those attendees that are totally new to the immersive learning space. Just give us a little bit of a high level on, if you were to explain immersive learning in a couple of minutes, what would you collectively describe that as? Because we know it has lots of applications. Can you just give us a real kind of step back, high level view of that, please?
Yeah. It's a really good question. So I think the reason we say immersive learning or spatial learning, which is kind of the way we're categorizing it, instead of saying VR or MR, is actually very specific. We want to couch this entire new space around the fact that you're moving from passive learning to active learning. So instead of sitting back and watching a 2D video, I'm going to engage in this content. I'm going to speak to it. I'm going to walk around in it, and it depends on how I'm engaging at that spectrum. It's a spectrum of different ways that I can engage. So if it's on desktop, which we will still sometimes call immersive, it's still active. Like I'm leaning in, I'm speaking to my computer, I'm engaging the content as if it's AI, like we're seeing with some of the emerging ChatGPT and other things that are happening. We're still going to call that immersive because it's about that lean in active learning. But then on the other end of the spectrum, it's fully stepping into a virtual world where you're stepping into a simulated reality through a headset, right? And you're engaging it as if it's real. And in the middle, there's mixed reality. And mixed is where I'm going to overlay, digital characters or digital objects on my field of view. And that's also going to be done through a headset, or eventually glasses. And that spectrum is what we call kind of immersive learning. And really what it's about is that higher engagement. The fact that, you're looking to get a different level of retention and outcomes as a result of that engagement. And so I think that's the simplest way to kind of talk about the spectrum. There's a lot of technologies in there, and there's a lot of complications to how one might build content for one or another. But at its simplest level, we're just trying to get a next level of engagement and outcomes.
Yeah, perfect. And I think, like say, the spectrum of where this can be applied is hugely broad, and we've seen that at Learning Tech, for example. Lots of different examples from all sorts of industries, UK use cases, practical applications, kind of soft skills, business skills, leadership, all sorts of things. So we know the applications are quite vast here in terms of how this can be used. We also know there's quite a few myths, and assumptions around immersive learning as well. Could you maybe give us a bit of a sort of debunk, I guess, on what some of those typically kind of look like, some of the things that you've heard in your experience?
Oh, yeah. Well, going back 8 years, right? Like I'd say it is night and day, and those myths don't die fast. So I'd start with the ones that were absolutely true a long time ago, but they aren't true anymore. So people, in some of their first experiences would put the headset on and they would get nauseous, and so you'd hear that often. And that was due to the immaturity of the technology, the frame rate, people not knowing how to build content that, because we didn't quite fully understand the perception stack of us, how we were engaging with this. Now we understand it very well now. And so, if that is the case, that there's probably something wrong. It shouldn't be the case anymore. So that was one that you heard early on. The cost, I think the perception, even last week at Connect Live in Chicago, I was having customers come up to me and tell me stories of just how much they had spent and how much time it had taken and how painful it was. And early on, there were no tools. There were no code tools. There was, you had to go external to a dev shop to actually build this content. It did take months to translate your goals to that developer for them to build the worlds and do the things that you wanted to do. At this point now, we have people creating modules in minutes, with none of that extra complication. So I think we're at a maturity point where it starts to look a lot like, like every other modality, where, you should be able to just put it in the same consideration stack. And then, of course, the outcomes is what's so different. So I'm trying to think what else was in that stack of objections. I mean, people oftentimes have struggled with the headset deployments or buying new hardware. And I think that's still a legitimate concern. Obviously, it's also moved dramatically. I mean, some of the headsets you saw in that video just there was the Quest 2. That's now $199 or $299. It's a very affordable device. And there's a lot of infrastructure that's now matured as well as to how you manage those and how you deploy those. So that's gotten a lot easier over the last 1 or 2 years. And so I think those are probably the three most common objections that you would hear. And it's moved from legitimate objection and was not being made up to now something that is pretty easily overcome or just not true anymore.
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, I've been in the learning space for over 10 years now, and I've seen immersive learning, VR, at all these different events, and it's definitely at that it's matured, and as you say, through the the availability, the cost, but people need with learning solutions to be able to publish those at pace to keep up with the learning needs. We can't be working on it and publish it 12 months later because you've missed the point of need. So really good points in there. Now, I've seen some really interesting stats that have come from studies that you've done on immersive learning and how it can drive things like engagement, recall, confidence of learning. So like you say, focusing on the outcomes, what will this piece of learning achieve? Could you talk through what some of those kind of data points look like, what you typically sort of see as some of those value kind of outcomes, and maybe around how that compares with traditional sort of learning or e-learning as well, some sort of comparisons in there as well?
Yeah. So Yvonne, if you want to jump down to slide 19. But yeah, so basically this here is just a very high level summary. As soon as it comes in, not seeing it come in. But basically we did, we've seen this now time and time again. Yvonne, you might have to go back and forward. It looks like it froze there for a second. So what we've seen, what basically the slide we're going to show is talking about some outcomes from a PwC based study that we did back in 2019, 2020. And really what we found was, or what they found, it was we were basically not allowed to kind of participate in it because it was basically an objective kind of ABC test between e-learning in classroom and virtual reality. And what we found was basically about a 4 times uplift on how fast people could learn. So 4 times faster to train on the same topic, and generally people were about 300% more confident. And so we saw these two vectors move exponential, in together. And so that was like one of the, and we had that assumption previously, but this was kind of one of the more robust studies that had been done at the time. Now since this, there's just been I would say hundreds of studies done out there that reinforce this. And we've seen the same type of impact, from actual deployments over and over and over again, even though they're not studied, is not a white paper like this was. So what I would say you can confidently assume now, and will be able to for I think this curve continues to increase, is just the time to mastery is a lot faster. Call it 3, call it 5. Call it 10 times faster, honestly, depending on the subject matter, because of the way that we engage the learner. And then, of course, because of the way we are engaging the learner, the retention is 3 to 5 times longer. We actually there was a fun moment, fun anecdote from Chicago this week, which is, we were working very heavily in the insurance space early on, and we had a piece of content that was around teaching the principles of home construction, and you had to assemble a house using VR. We had a gentleman walk up to the booth, and we hadn't seen him in a while, and it's been 5 years. He could viscerally recall the module and the lessons, and I was just like, that's what we're talking about. That's insane. Like that's not possible with a video. Very few people can recall the visceral details of a video 5 years later. And so that was a very, powerful and just reminder of why this stuff is so, so impactful.
Yeah, that's it. I think that is a typical challenge for our customers. How to engage people? How do you keep them excited? And by offering this as a new modality to all of the other great modalities we already have, this adds something else to the toolkit there. And having it fully embedded as part of the learning solution as well means that you can take that more kind of blended approach. But yeah, I think really good stats in there.
I think that's the
And
yeah, that's Chris. That's one of the things that has been missing. You kind of said it there as if it was like a simple fact, but like that wasn't possible to have immersive just as part of a component of a broader learning journey in your default system, of where the learners are going. That's the magic to the acquisition. We've solved that piece, because previously these things were silos sitting over. Immersive was like a silo where you had to leave the learning environment. There was all this extra friction to get people into there. The data wasn't going back, and the engagement was there, but it was sitting way over here. And so now the fact that you could pull down a Grovo course and pair that with an immersive course, and then do that, and just build a learning journey in as a default modality. That's the moment we've been needing. So I didn't, that's pretty novel. Like that just happened 8 weeks ago.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. And leveraged by that content studio tool all in one place, it makes it so much more simplistic and powerful for administrators there as well.
Can I jump in quickly before we move away from engagement? Because we've got a really interesting question on engagement. So have you noticed a difference in uptake or engagement in immersive learning between different age groups?
Oh, yeah. This is actually one of those things that I have been surprised. So, and this goes back a ways, actually. So, if we were like, say, pre-pandemic, 6 years ago or so, we were starting to walk into, give demo. We did a lot of in-person demos in the early years because people just didn't have access to the headsets. They didn't know what it was. We had to help walk them through it. So there's a lot of in-person demos. And I walked into a lot of rooms that were very cold when you walked in, because some innovation guy or gal had invited us in, and they brought their colleagues around, and all their colleagues were very skeptical. Like, why did you bring me here? And so we walked into a lot of those very cold rooms, and I walked out of a lot of very exuberant rooms with a wide range of age demographics and genders and ethnicities. And so I've consistently been surprised at the engagement of baby boomers and of generations that you wouldn't have just gone, oh yeah, they're gamers. They grew up gamers. So I think that the impact and the engagement resonates no matter who you are once you put this on and step into it. Now, of course, those that have grown up expecting interaction at every moment, like those, this is better. This is built for them, right? So your younger generations in the workforce, of course, have a visceral reaction, but it is I would say surprisingly evenly distributed in terms of the outcomes that we've seen, and I'd say also that's from new joiners to the executive suite. We were at an event with one of the larger global consulting partners, and it was a 200-person event with all C-suite, and we're going to put all 200 people in headsets at once and have them have an experience, which I thought was crazy. I thought it was going to go terrible, and it didn't. They put it on, and everybody did it, which I was shocked. And people came out, and they were like childlike again. They had this exuberance to want to talk about what they just experienced, and the whole room like kind of lit up. And so that's been a very consistent type of engagement and response across a very wide range of environments and audiences and approaches. So I would say don't count anybody out here just because you think it's cool and hip and for the kids, for the gamers.
Learning inclusivity. Yeah. Yvonne, I see we've got another couple of questions. Should we jump in and answer those?
Well, yeah, I think the reason I answered that one was just because it was on engagement, and I think if we're happy to sort of have a little quick chat around that would be quite good. So one here from Ben, which says, with a large remote workforce of thousands across the world, managing the cost and distribution of hardware will be highly challenging. What lessons have you learned about rolling this out at scale?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And so I think until listen, the goal is that this in the next maybe generation or two, the actual hardware gets to a profile that it becomes something that would either replace a laptop or complement a laptop or a mobile device. And you can see that with what with Apple's already doing and how they're pushing with the Vision Pro, and where Meta with the Quest 3 here in this photo is headed in a similar direction. But until we're there, there's a couple deployment models that are, consistently successful. I mean, the first is the kind of the learning center model, where you use it as a center of excellence, and you bring people in as part of a higher level of engagement. We see that being like, I would say the easiest thing to manage. And because it is so visceral, it is nice to have, live people there to catch people as they come out of these experiences and have discussions and really like harness what's just happened. So that environment's really, really good for that. If you are going fully remote and distributed, of course, it makes a lot more sense when you have something like we're now doing with how we've integrated everything to Cornerstone. You need regular content. You need a justification to, hopefully not just ship that headset and then ship it back, but actually, to give that headset, because it has come down in cost so much. That's the ideal. If you have to cycle them out, it takes, there's some best practices for sure. And we can definitely, kind of help guide on that. We've done that very successfully at pretty large scale, but of course, then you are shipping around a lot of hardware. So it is a logistics, operation, but well worth it. Again, if you're measuring the outcome, then, you have to kind of go, what frictions am I willing to accept for that outcome? If you're just measuring ease of access, you're going to pick something else because you don't have to deal with, any of this stuff. So we always say, the more important the initiative or more important the outcome, the more you're willing to take on those kinds of frictions. But we're a far cry from where we were a few years ago, where there wasn't even ways to manage fleets or distribute content or any of that stuff. It was all, basically manual at that point. But we're now at a point where there's easy ways to keep those things in sync.
Good stuff. And there's a question that's kind of linked to that as well, around the sort of the hardware side of things, from Joan, who asked what other equipment is potentially needed, i.e. other wearables for physical interaction. So aside of the headsets, would there be other equipment that people should be considering?
So this is also an interesting moment in time, and like I said at the beginning, this is just such a spectrum of ways that you can engage, and also it's evolving fast. The space is evolving fast. So if you'd asked that question, even 9 months ago, we would have had to talk about, well, you also have to be mindful of the hand controllers, as an example of using VR, right? You got the headset and the hand controllers as two key components. Now we're moving away from needing hand controllers. You can just do hand tracking. You can do eye tracking. So it's just the main headset device. So you don't have those other peripherals. And there are people that are doing things that are using other trackers. So if there's like I've seen really impactful kind of safety trainings where they're using body trackers for posture and things like that to actually help teach muscle memory. Of course, when you get more into the deep nuanced use cases like that, then there's additional hardware, but that's usually more of your in the learning lab or in a innovation lab that's really trying to push the boundaries, versus anything that anybody's doing at large scale. The large scale stuff now is getting down to, just a simple device, no controllers, using gaze, voice, and hands, so it's more natural in terms of its interaction. And so all those other wearables and things that you see in some of the images or videos that get circulated are probably a bit more nuanced in why people are doing them at this point.
Good stuff.
And there's just a question further up from Dawn that I don't want to lose because we've got a lot of questions coming in now. So just one around how accessible is the immersive learning experience? For example, people with visual impairments.
So there's again, I hate to make everything a spectrum, but there's a spectrum of answers here. So first, what we decided early on was that this is a transition, that people need to go from kind of 2D learning to spatial learning. And so, and we didn't want to make it that as a buyer, you had to make the decision to go all the way to full spatial learning in a headset. So every piece of content that's in the library or that we publish on our platform, it's available in desktop or the headset. Now, of course, the outcomes are different. The engagement's a little bit different. But in this case, for accessibility, that might be a big help, right? Because you can do things in the desktop for say visual impairment or for hearing impairment that you wouldn't be as couldn't do as easily in the headset. So that gives some of the more standard accessibility features come back and play. Now where we're headed next, and what you're even seeing, I don't know if some people here might have seen the OpenAI announcement this week with GPT 4.0, and they had an example there where Sal Khan was sitting with his son, teaching him trigonometry, and it was using AI and computer vision to look at what he was doing, and it was all voice enabled, and so it was talking them through as a inline AI coach to as to what they were doing, and it was kind of collaborating on the learning. So we're seeing that type of experience come into just glasses. So I actually have a pair somewhere here, but like Meta and Ray-Ban have collaborated on a pair of glasses that has Meta's AI built into the stems, and so I can say I could say what is that, or translate that to me, or help tell me more, and then it actually speaks to me in that case. And so when we say immersive, it's inclusive of these types of interactions and modalities. I wouldn't say that that's just a checkbox, switch it to another mode yet, but you can think about accessibility in kind of a new light here, because there's some real superpowers coming to bear between how we can use generative AI, immersion, and audio to serve different audiences.
Thank you, Carl. So I think we've got another couple of questions in the chat. Yvonne, should we jump in on those
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Shona asked a question around as a company, we've talked around immersive learning a lot, but we've not managed to get started. What's your advice on how to get started to implement this in a global business?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's kind of most exciting about the acquisition is now we're making that just really easy. So if you're a Content Anytime subscriber, there's just courses in there, and so you could just literally, as you're searching, find one, pull it in, and then start to decide as you deploy that. Let's figure out which audiences maybe we want to do in headset. That course is both accessible via desktop in a more immersive and interactive way, and in headset. So you can kind of go, okay, we're going to use immersive in this track or this journey, and again, because we're maybe not quite ready to buy headsets and roll them out globally at scale, you don't have to, right? You pick a cohort that's close to you or that you want to benchmark against, and you start with a smaller population of headsets. Those learners can again, when they hit that corner, that course in either CSX or wherever they're launching it from, they're going to be given the option of desktop or in headset. And then they click in headset, they just, they're given a code and they go and do it in the headset. And we handle all the kind of round tripping and complicated technology, kind of behind the scenes. And so that's a really easy way just to start putting it out into the field. And the other thing we see that prior to this acquisition and prior to having it in CCA, what we saw was starting with like a very impactful but bespoke use case that you could put some attention around to measure the outcomes, so that it would be worthwhile to socialize across the broader business. Again, the time to create isn't as is very, very doable. In fact, there's a fun slide I threw into this, Yvonne, if you want to go to it. Actually, the next one. Yeah, so 20. This is kind of where we've been in terms of creation. And this is specifically speaking to generative AI and how we're reducing the costs. But if you look at how this curve is coming down, so back in 2018, this was, if you wanted to get started, first of all, there weren't libraries, they weren't in CCA, right? So you couldn't, that option was off the table. So you were looking at 5 months, probably roughly 10 people, and a few $100,000 to create a course, which is a huge barrier, right? And so, but people were doing it because they believed so much in the value. A year later, that was coming down. We were getting some efficiencies in the creation process, but it was still highly technical. We introduced Copilot Designer in 2020, and that was kind of one of the first no-code tools that was designed for learning designers. So taking all the complicated stuff of how to create this and putting it again behind the scenes and making it very addressable for people that were close to the problem. So that we saw all of a sudden come down to about 5 weeks, and it also came down to 2 or 3 people, and they were all learning designers and narrative designers, not developers. So that was a huge shift, and then that's just continued to get less and less. And as we introduce generative AI, now you see with the phases, we're at a place now where I can the build that I'm currently playing with and working with, I can prompt a fully immersive experience into existence in a matter of a few minutes. And it's more impactful than the one that we took 5 months and 10 people to build, back in 2018. So, so even getting started with something that is completely bespoke is totally doable now. This is the you could pick this up, design the content, and actually have it ready to deploy, and just as fast as whipping up a new video or something if you had to compare it to other options. So hopefully that's again, it's a spectrum of off the shelf versus to completely bespoke, but both are really quite easy to get started at this point.
Stuff. Thanks, Carl. And Dan's asked a question around, has anyone used immersive learning for leadership and management? I struggled to see the use case. So I know you've got a slide in here that talks around, where we've got the Tailspin courses that are in the management and leadership subscription. So we have some very specific titles there.
You can jump down to that.
I think examples that we've worked on.
22 or 23, I think we actually show some of how we've wedded that in. So it's a good question, Dan. It's not an obvious use case, and but once you unpack it, it actually becomes pretty powerful. So what we built, so the no-code platform is primarily the interaction is conversation. So you're speaking to AI-based characters as you engage in these kind of immersive worlds. So what that means is that anything that would fall into feedback, leadership, coaching, de-escalation, collaboration, these are things that are, quite difficult to practice in the real world, right? Like you're practicing in a live environment where you need to be excellent, and you just aren't because you haven't built the skills. And so what we've seen is by putting people in this kind of safe place to fail, where you're having these conversations with these virtual humans or avatars, we've created that environment, and you can actually do some real skill building. And so you can say the wrong thing, let it go the wrong way, try to bring it back. You can practice selling, practice overcoming objections. And so we've built some titles, some actual titles around that now. And so you'll see here on like professional skills at the top, adaptability, building organizational memory, and some of these others, conflict resolution. That's what you're doing in these. You're stepping into a simulated business environment, not just stepping in and talking to a character, but it's about like putting yourself in the context of a situation, and then running through that a few times and getting the practice. people do role play all the time, but that's most of us are not natural born actors, and it's uncomfortable. We don't like it. We're in front of our peers. We feel very self-conscious. It's not realistic because you're not actually really there. And so you're having to do all these mental gymnastics to try to get yourself into the place to focus on the actual skill. And when you do it this way, just all of that just goes away. You're stepping into this world and you're just kind of going, okay, let me engage in this. This is interesting. And because we're engaging all your senses, right? Because you are fully immersed in it, it becomes very sticky. It actually records to our physiology as if it was a real world experience, even though it's a created one. So for leadership's actually been one of the I'd say non-obvious and breakout use cases. And we kind of led the way in that.
That's Carl. Yvonne, just a quick time check then. Are we running to 10:45 or 11 o'clock? I had it as 11, so we might be.
Yes, we do. We're running. It was set till 10:45. I see we don't have any more questions coming in at the moment. And yes, the webinar will be recorded, Nick. Definitely. So we'll send that around probably next week. I have now popped, because obviously we've talked today all about immersive learning. Obviously it's there for Cornerstone content subscriptions now. Am I correct in saying that? Or customers now?
Correct.
Yep. And obviously available
yes.
on desktops. But what I'm very excited about and can't wait for personally is Connect Live on the 4th of June, where we will have a full VR lounge available for people to come around and really get into the detail, I guess, of immersive learning. So I have put the link to Connect Live in the chat. If anybody hasn't yet registered, do please come along. I think we've covered all the questions in the chat. Is there anything else we want to add in there, Kyle or Chris?
Yeah, I was just gonna just having just come off of Connect Live in Chicago, just share a little bit of the experience I had in that kind of immersive lounge. So first of all, a lot of the people that came up had invested in immersive somewhere in the last 4 or 5 years, and they had their learnings, and we're kind of wanting to see where has it moved, how much easier is this, how much is the quality improved, where are we going next. And so we had we have all of our experts kind of on site, so those conversations and doing those in London are fantastic. Like that, we had some great discussions there. But it's also just an easy place to kind of come in, just try for the first time too. So we had a really wide range of conversations that were going on, and a lot of the kind of questions that we were having here. You have the time to unpack them more fully, work through the details of the customer environment, and really kind of dig into how easy is easy in their particular environment. So. Great opportunity to do that in person, coming up in just a week here, week and a half.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Carl. And I've put it in the chat. So if anyone does have any specific kind of follow-up questions, carry on the conversation. I imagine this session has sparked a lot of people's thoughts processes around how they could leverage, collectively immersive learning in their organization. They want to talk a bit more about kind of strategy, what we have in the content subscriptions and what's coming. I've popped my email address in the chat. I'll happily sort of field any of those. We can connect up with your account managers or relevant points of contact here as well. But do feel free to reach out and we'll be more than happy to get those answered or set up some time to carry on the conversation as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very, very much, Chris and Kyle. I think that was a really interactive session. We didn't even get to all of our own questions because there were so many from the audience, which will kind of says a lot about this topic, which is wonderful. But I'm looking forward to seeing you both at Connect Live in a few weeks. And of course, any customers, we'd love to see you there to experience this in real life. Or is it in real life or virtual reality?
What is real anymore?
So thank you very much both. We will get the recording of this out to everybody, and we'll speak to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much. Take care. Bye-bye.